I'm Sarah, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a recent reads video, and I apologize if you hear weird like ghosty sounds. I don't have a ghost in my house, I promise. The windows are open and the wind is blowing, so if it sounds like there's a ghost in here, I hope it's not picking up on the microphone, but I don't know if it is. But if you do hear that, it's just the wind through the windows. It's not a ghost. Okay, so yeah, I have quite a few books to talk about. And they range anywhere from I really super enjoyed them, they're new favorites, to I will not be continuing. So yeah, I'm just gonna list them in the order, roughly the order I read them, because it's easier. Yeah, so the first book I have to talk about is The Icarus Aftermath by Ariel M. Bailey. This is basically it's a sci-fi, which is odd for me. I don't normally like sci-fi, especially in books. I mostly do sci-fi as like TV shows, movies, mostly. But this is a sci-fi. It is basically a plotline of Star Wars, a Star Wars type plotline mixed with Greek mythology. This book in particular is a retelling of the Minotaur and the Labyrinth. And basically in this one, is that a spoiler? Well, I mean, technically it happens in the first 2 pages, so I don't think it's a spoiler. Basically, there's a resistance in this galaxy against these, tyrannical decrees, I think they are, and, when the captain of the rebellion fleet, Icarus, is killed, basically his brother Talos steps in to kind of like command his squadron, but he's dealing with also the grief of losing his brother, obviously. And then we also follow Karilla, I believe is how you say her name. She was basically Icarus's girlfriend, and she basically joins the rebellion too. She's an Amazon, and she joins to help them eradicate the Creeds, basically, who killed Icarus. And they're trying to free the galaxy from these tyrannical Olympians and stuff, and it's a very interesting mix of Greek mythology with basically the sci-fi plotline. And yeah, basically they're trying to destroy the Labyrinth, which is this like giant force field around this planet, and it keeps spreading to like more galaxies and stuff, and if they don't cut it off in any time, the rebellion will have no chance to defeat the bad guys. And that is the basic plot line of this book. It is the first book in the Sunfire Saga, not basically, but currently this is the only book out in the series. I really hope the author continues though, because I'm very curious to see where she goes with this. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. Mostly we follow from Talos and Karilla's point of view. We also get a point of view from the general of the rebellion, and a couple other characters on occasion. Most of the time it's those 3, and I really enjoyed this. I honestly didn't think I would as much as I did, because it's sci-fi. I kind of just went with it on a whim. I heard one of my friends talking about it on her blog when it first came out, and yeah, I honestly knew nothing else about it except that it was Star Wars combined with Greek mythology, and yeah, I really enjoyed it, really enjoyed the characters. I also really liked the discussion of grief and how hard it is that this book goes through. Yeah, that's just something that I really appreciate when authors do really well, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. There is some language. I list which words are used in my review. By the way, my reviews of all these books will be linked down in the description in case you're interested in like content or anything else I might have forgotten to talk about with these books that I mentioned in those reviews. So if you're curious, those are all linked in the description. But yeah, there's some language in here, and there was one scene that I wasn't fond of because it was kind of one of those situations of we need to distract someone on our mission from what we're really doing, so we'll just kiss this random person. It's one of those things, you know, like we'll just kiss our mission partner, and even though we're not together. And yeah, I don't like that trope. I find it really irritating, but it was done in a way that it wasn't too annoying, but it was in there, and I was just kind of like rolling my eyes a little bit like, really, we're doing this one? So yeah, I was kind of annoyed by that part, but overall I did really enjoy this book. Honestly, this is mostly like strategizing. It's mostly a character study. There is Not very many space battles, actually, for a book that says it's like, Greek mythology meets Star Wars. There's very little to no action in here. There's like maybe 3-ish space battles total, and they don't last very long. So mostly it's character studies, following these characters on this mission, and also with grieving the loss of Icarus. So yeah, it's more on that angle and less on the action angle. So yeah, I really enjoyed that overall, though, even though I do really like action scenes. So yeah, I would recommend this book if you're interested in that type of a story, a sci-fi type story. Okay, the next book I finished was the third book in the Pack of Dawn and Destiny series, Fated by K.M. Shea. This is, like I said, the third book. So it's part of the Magiford Supernaturals universe. It is an urban fantasy, and I can't say too much about it. Obviously, it's the third book, but I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed that we're following a werewolf pack in Wisconsin, and we're following a werewolf hunter, Pip, who lives with this pack, and they're having issues, at least in the first book, with wolves being injected with this magical serum that is basically illegal, and it turns them feral, and people are doing that. And basically in the second book, they're dealing with people being turned against their will into werewolves. And in the third book, they're basically due to a certain circumstance that is mentioned in the first 2 books, the other alphas of werewolf packs are coming to theirs and trying to take Pip. I cannot say for what reason, because that is a giant spoiler. But yeah, and yeah, also Pip and Grayson are still having issues with their relationship and how they want to do that. And I really enjoyed this book. I really like Pip as a character. I relate to her a lot on multiple things. Grayson's a really sweet, nice guy. I just enjoy this series a lot. I enjoy all the Magiford books, actually. But yeah, this is definitely Pack of Dawn and Destiny is now my 3rd favorite series. If you read my review of United, which is the second book, it was either that one or it was in Fated. I said this was my 2nd favorite series. It is now changed to my 3rd. I'll explain more of that in a bit when I talk about the next Magiford series. But yeah, I still really enjoy this. Really love Pip. Really love these characters and just the werewolf and the pack dynamics and all that. I really enjoyed this series, so, and I would highly recommend them. Sorry I can't say too much about it, but it's the 3rd book, so, in a trilogy, so can't say much about that. Okay, the next book I read was Haikyuu Volume 4. Sorry about the glare. That's the cover. This is obviously a continuation of the Haikyuu manga series. Volleyball manga series, and I gave this one 3 stars. It was kind of just a team game, or kind of a practice game between 2 teams from 2 different high schools, and to be honest, I found it a little boring. I have noticed, at least of the first 4 volumes that I've read, I mostly seem to enjoy more the ones that are focusing on the characters themselves and what they're going through. Obviously, you can't do that all the time with some of these things, especially with manga, which goes on a very long time. But this one I just found a little boring, and I just didn't care as much. So yeah, that's why it's a 3-star, but I will still be continuing the series. I'm just waiting for the library to, for my hold on the library for the 5th volume to come up. So yeah, I really don't have much to say about that one. Basically, it was fine. And that's my opinion. Okay, the next book I read was Stellar Loon by Shannon Messenger. This is the 9th and currently the last published book of Hubert the Lost Cities. The very last book or 2 are not published yet. They're not going to be, at least book 10 is not going to be published until 2024. Again, 9th book in the series. Can't say a whole lot. I really enjoyed it, though. I gave it 4 stars, and like you can see, this cover is gorgeous. I really like the cover that they did for this one, and I don't have the physical copy anymore, obviously, but it was like metallic-y and stuff. It was really cool. But yeah, I gave this book 4 stars. Ironically enough, for these books are huge, and they go through a lot of like emotional stuff that some of the characters are going through. Most of the book was Sophie going through some kind of emotional turmoil and struggles and stuff like that, stuff internally for her, and was pretty much just a build-up. I have a feeling this is building up towards just an explosive ending. I'm not really sure when that ending's going to be. Book 10's supposedly going to be the last book, but it's highly possible the author may publish an 11th book if the ending will feel rushed or anything, which after the ending of this book, if it is going to be the case, I hope she does publish 11 books if that would be the case otherwise, because I did not like the ending of this book. It wasn't a bad ending, it was just it felt very like something was gonna happen, and then we got to that point, things were happening, and then we just stopped. It was just like, bam, we're done. And it was just like, what? And I was very confused by that very abrupt ending. Like, it's a good place theoretically to stop, because it's like you have big reveal and then you're done with the book. That's a great cliffhanger ending, but it just felt very like that. It just felt very like we just hit a wall, and I'm just like, huh? It was a very interesting ending. It's not usually the reaction I have to the endings of these books. Usually it just makes sense, or it's like, oh, okay, that is a big thing, what are we going to do about it now? But this one just felt very abrupt. It almost felt like the author was going to write more in this book, and then she just decided to cut it off there. So, not sure about that, but I was not a fan of the ending. In fact, I was more a fan of the very beginning of the story, like, to that point, which was, like, the last third of the book, I think it was. But, yeah. But, yeah, I definitely enjoyed this. Sophie gets some things together with, like, relationships and stuff like that, and, for anyone who's read the book, I heard rumors about what chapter 42 entailed. I'm not going to give spoilers, so don't worry about that if you haven't read it yet. But I knew there was some kind of romantic stuff, we'll just put it that way, in chapter 42. And that scene was more sweet and beautiful than I thought it would be. Honestly, like, I had a good idea of what it was. And I was correct. But it was just written way better than I thought it would. And that was honestly probably my favorite part of the whole book. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And yeah, but I really enjoyed this book. I'm glad I'm caught up to what's published. And I'm very eagerly awaiting for when book 10 is published. So, okay, we're going to just go to the next one, which was another disappointment. This is actually one of the manga series I was going to try this year, and unfortunately I will not be continuing beyond this first volume. And that is Fairy Tail. This is like an older manga series, I think. I think it's almost considered like a classic. And I was very interested in it. It's basically the whole premise of the story. It's basically a guild in this fantasy land of these wizards who are just like, they're kind of like misfits. They're kind of like, yeah, like not the cream of the crop. They're a little unhinged sometimes. They're just a bunch of misfits that come together in this guild, Fairy Tail, and basically form a giant found family. And that sounds like a really cool idea, and I really liked the idea of it. I had seen a few clips and also a couple of the first 2 episodes, I believe it was, of the anime, and I was very interested, but I don't have any way to get more of the anime, so I was going to try the manga. Unfortunately, though, if the anime is very much like this manga, I don't think I'm going to like it. I gave this volume 2 stars. I mainly did it. The story was fine. And the characters were good, and they both had really good potentials for something I would really, really enjoy. Unfortunately, I ended up knocking it down because there's a lot of, how do you put this, like, sexual type comments, and, like, girls are often wearing bikinis, which is fine. I've come across that in, like, manga and stuff before, or even just in other books and stuff. But this was, they were almost using their bodies as kind of a ways to get what they want, not sexually in a way, but it was enough that I was just kind of, like, annoyed with it and very kind of uncomfortable. So yeah, I will not be continuing the series. The story has great premise, and the characters have great potential to be something I would really like. Unfortunately, the content level, which if you want to see more details on that, like I said, check out my Goodreads review because I listed it all, that I was having issues with. So Yeah, very disappointing because I did really want to try this one and I thought it was going to be something I would really like, but yeah, I just can't do that. So yeah, we'll be skipping the series after all. I basically DNF'd it. Even though I didn't read beyond volume 1, I will not be continuing, and I probably will not check out the anime unless unless you guys know if it has less of that stuff in it. If you do, please leave a comment down below and let me know. But as of now, no, I will not be continuing the series either in manga or anime format. Okay, the next one we'll just talk about these. The next series I read is actually another manga series, and that is QQ Sweeper. This is a very interesting concept. It's a 3-volume series. So this is volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3. These are basically, this is a kind of a supernatural urban fantasy type series. Basically, our two main characters here, Fumi, I believe, and Kayutaro, I believe is how you say their names. He's Kayutaro, she's Fumi. They basically live, it's a really hard concept. It's not really a hard concept, it just sounds weird. They're sweepers. Basically, they are people who go into people's minds and they will clean out the negative, dirty emotions that come in. Often they come in the form of bugs that are like bad negative emotions, and the more dirty a person's mind is, the more infested they are with bugs that come out and they come out in different ways of like treating people badly, mental illnesses, things like that, and they come out that way in real life. So sweepers go in and they basically clean the mind so that people can continue living without all these negative emotions and stuff. And yeah, it is a very interesting concept. My friend Laura had read these and she really enjoyed them, and my library doesn't have the first volume of the second series, which does follow this one. It's like a sequel series called Queen's Quality. They don't have the first one of that one, but they had all 3 of these, so I decided to try it, and I really enjoyed it. I gave all 3 of these 5 stars. I really enjoyed the concept the mangaka put into it of just the mental mind traps that we get into and the negativity and what it does to people, what it does to yourself. And I just really enjoyed the metaphors behind all that. The characters are great too. They are just, yeah, they're amazing people. I really enjoyed them, fell in love with them in the first volume, and then, yeah, which is not easy. Most manga takes me a little bit to get into it, but these, I just really loved them right away. And yeah, I just thoroughly enjoyed how she did that, how she portrayed like mental illnesses and stuff. There is yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So if you are afraid of bugs though, I might skip this one, because especially in the first volume there's giant centipedes. The other 2 volumes mostly have like these like bee wasp-like creatures, which don't look as creepy, but there is a large amount of very giant bugs in this volume. So in these volumes, so if you're afraid of bugs, you might want to avoid these. So yeah, for that reason. Also in the 3rd volume, we also run into a fortune teller dude who is actually just what they call a bug handler, who is somebody who can like manipulate the bugs inside people to infest them and control them and stuff like that. It's a negative thing. It is definitely shown in a negative light that these high schoolers are seeing this fortune teller who basically can make them do what he wants by twisting the darkness inside them. It is portrayed as a very negative thing. Also, in this volume particularly, there's a trigger warning for a potential suicide. Somebody almost does jump off a building. They are stopped. So it doesn't actually happen, but they almost do. So there is that in there. So if you're sensitive to that type of thing, you might just want to be aware of that and check into it and see if that would bother you. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this series though. Yeah, really loved it. I wish it was longer, but since it does continue in a sequel series, I just don't know how I'm going to get my hands on the first volume, because I'm not sure if I want to buy it because some of the descriptions made me think it might go a little weird, but I'm not really sure. So I like to keep my judgments at a minimum to that. So since it is more of the supernatural stuff, and sometimes that can go in a strange directions that I don't care for. So yeah, really enjoyed this series, and hopefully I can find the first volume of the sequel series, Queen's Quality, eventually. So, okay, the next book I have is, nope, yeah, and now that flipped out. Okay, we're going to get rid of this. Hello? Fine, whatever. Okay, this thing's acting weird. I apologize. Anyways, I'm just going to go into my next one that I didn't really like very much. That is Fantastic Creatures. This is an anthology of short stories that basically follow all kinds of different fantastical creatures in different types of stories, ranging in all kinds of genres. I gave this collection 2 stars. I only liked like 6 of the stories in it. There were, I don't know, probably close to 20. I have no idea, but this was a free ebook I got off of Amazon. I think it's always free. So if you want to check it out for some reason, it always is free, to my knowledge. So I just didn't really care for most of the stories. Most of them I was just meh about, and a couple of them really were just, I don't know why they were in there, and they were very creepy, and I just did not like them. So yeah, there's not much to say about that one. I just didn't really like it. So some other people might, and if you want to see the 6 stories that I did like, you can check out my review of that below. I don't remember all of them. I know one of them was called Snapdragon, another one was Celebration, I forget the rest. So yeah, it just wasn't very memorable. It was just kind of there, and I didn't end up caring for it very much. So that's a disappointment. Okay, and the next ebook I read, that was Misfortune. This is part of a Twist of Adventure series by Kendra E. Ardnick. This is like very short stories of fairy tale retellings. None of them are connected or any way. I think this is like I think it's the 4th one in the series, and I don't think any of them are connected at all. It was just a retelling of Rapunzel. Basically, this girl is like the last surviving royal child of her kingdom, and she's basically told she's cursed, and that she had cursed her kingdom into being destroyed because she was born a girl, and then the king who destroyed her country, and then, you know, is like kind of keeping her because, you know, he doesn't know how to get rid of her because she's like, could curse him if he gets rid of her wrong. He sends his son to take her to the local dragon terrorizing the country and being like, okay, you're going to feed her to the dragon, and then we'll get rid of both the cursed girl and the dragon problem, because he thinks the girl will then curse the dragon and kill it. So, yeah, and the prince does not want to do that. He's just like, especially once he meets this girl, he's just like, this is not the right thing to do. And yeah, it goes from there. It is very short. Yeah, I think she set it up in like chapters, so they're like 12 chapters. I think it took me, I don't know, an hour to read. It's just very short, very sweet. I actually really enjoyed this. I read another short story by her in this series before. It was the first one. I didn't care for it, but I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, it's a Rapunzel retelling, and I normally love those because Rapunzel's my favorite fairy tale, and I just really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. It was just really fast, really sweet, and the characters were like really well developed for a short story. It's like I knew them, who they were and stuff, and they felt very 3-dimensional and stuff, which is a feat to do in a short story, I know, because short stories are hard to write. So I applaud any author who can manage that, and she did in this book, and it was really, really good. So I would highly recommend that one. Okay, so stop it. This thing drives me nuts. Okay, I'm going to talk about this series now. Well, I have it on the iPad because there are no physical copies of this book yet. It's currently only ebook. And that is the current published work in the Magiford universe. And that is Gate of Myth and Power series. The first book is The King's Captive. Let me find the covers for the second and the third books. The second book is The King's Shadow, and the third book, if I can get this thing to work, is the King's Queen. And these are part of the Magiford Supernatural Universe by K.M. Shea. This is the most recent series released, literally the third book released in March of this year. And I have been buddy reading these books, these Magiford books with my family, and I love this series. I gave the first book like a 4.5 stars, and I gave the second and third books 5 stars, and they are really good. Basically we follow Chloe. She's like the lowest of the low in the supernatural community. She can shapeshift into a house cat. That is her power. So as you can probably imagine, in a world of like vampires and werewolves and fae and stuff, she's like the least powerful, least noticed person, and a lot of the fae, like lower fae courts, pick on her a lot, and she kind of just lives in constant anxiety and fear. And then one day these fae from the Seelie and the Unseelie courts, which are the lowest fae courts in this world, they just like take her to try to recruit this guy or their king wants them to recruit this guy, and he takes her, basically adopts her because she's in her cat form. He takes her from the fae because he thinks, the guy they're trying to recruit, who is an elf, I'll just go ahead and say that right away, and he notices her in her cat form, and he's just like, you fae are torturing that poor cat, give me the cat. So they do. They know she's a human, but they don't care. So they just hand her over, and basically she gets adopted by this elf, and by and far this elf should not exist, because in Magiford, this universe, the elves were supposedly wiped out in a supernatural war decades ago. Actually, I think it was more like centuries ago. But he is the last remaining elf of his house, and he's like guarding a whole elf kingdom that nobody even knows exists. And so basically she now has to pretend to be his pet cat, in order to make sure that he won't kill her because he realizes she's a human or something. So yeah, and that is where it goes from there. And they're trying to break up like an artifacts making crime ring that's going on, so there's a little bit of detective work in there, and it just goes from there. That's mainly the premise of the first book. I obviously can't mention what happens in the second and the third book because that would be giant spoilers. But I really enjoyed this book. Chloe is a very relatable character to me. She's like shy and doesn't really want to be noticed, and I just totally love her. It was a little hard for me to pin down her personality at first in the first book, which is why I gave it only a 4.5 stars. When the second and third book come along, because yes, she kind of does get outed as a cat by the end of the first book. I mean, there's kind of a romantic relationship involved here, so you kind of figure that's gonna happen, but so I don't think that's really a spoiler. So yeah, by the second and third book, when she can be a human, I got more attached to her personality and got more a kind of a grasp on how her personality worked and stuff, which is what made me really love her even more. And Noctis, he is our elf hero. He is not what you would expect, and I really enjoyed that. He almost falls into the brooding bad boy category, but he kind of doesn't. He's sort of there, but he's sort of not, and yeah, and I just really enjoyed him. I really enjoyed his friends, his friend group, and they were hilarious. I really enjoyed them. These characters were amazing characters from the other books and do pop in occasionally, and I enjoyed seeing a lot of them throughout the series, because I honestly didn't think she was going to reveal certain people or show certain people at certain times, but she did, and I really liked that. Yeah, things escalate. I think I have mentioned with the other Magiford series, there is like this overarching bad guy looming in the distance type plot line, and they really ratcheted up a notch in these books, and it's just like, whoa, okay, you guys are really getting annoying, and they're now known as the Organization. So I have at least a title now to refer them as, besides the big bad guys. So yeah, and yeah, they just really went for it in this one, and yeah, it was intense. Yeah, I will say, definitely, if you want to read these, definitely read them one right after the other, because the first book ends on a major cliffhanger of like a reveal, and the second book is the saddest ending ever. Oh my goodness. The way it ended, it was just so sad. It was the saddest ending of any of these books. Like, literally, I read it and I was like almost depressed for the whole day after I read it, because it was like I couldn't just jump into the next book and make myself feel better, because I was, you know, reading it with my family. So I had to wait, and I just literally got depressed that whole day because of how sad that ending was. Which sounds bad, but it definitely gets better by the third book, because that part that made it sad is definitely resolved. And yeah, and the ending of the third book was perfect, and I loved it, and I love these characters, and this is the reason why Pack of Dawn and Destiny has moved down to my third favorite series, because Gate of Myth and Power is my second to first, because I'm pretty sure that one is up there with Hall of Blood and Mercy trilogy. I love both of them so much, but for different reasons, so I hesitate to say Gate of Myth and Power is now second, because I also hesitate to put Hall of Blood and Mercy in second. So they're like equally first. Yeah, top tier. And I guess technically Pack of Dawn and Destiny can stay second then, since they're both on first tier. So yeah, I guess that solves that problem. So yeah. And I'm really disappointed there are no more Magiford books right now. She has to write them, of course, so I fully give props to the author, because she has to write them. And I hope she continues to write them for a while. So yeah, I'm very glad I read these books. I really loved them. My family and I both enjoyed them a lot. And yeah, this series definitely is, I mean, I already knew K.M. Shea was a favorite author of mine, but this series definitely would have cemented that. And it definitely stays that way. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking at my list here to make sure. Yep, okay. I have 2 more books to talk about. It shouldn't take very long, since this video is getting a little bit long already. Sorry. And the next book I finished was The Writer's Guide to Archery, a practical guide to bows and arrows in fiction by James E. Wadsworth. This is a nonfiction, like, writing craft book, obviously about archery. It covers things from, like, different types of bows to different materials of it, how they would be used, what type of bow would fit for your character, etc. All types of things like that to help make your archery more authentic in your books and fiction and stuff. That he also has a section in here on, like, what movies and films and stuff tend to get wrong with archery, and found this very, very helpful. I do have an archeress in my current Creasley Chronicles trilogy, and so I really just wanted to make sure I was getting archery things correctly, and this is a very good book, good resource book for that. The history chapter, I think it was called The Very Short History of the Bow and Arrow, that chapter was a little dry and a little boring, but it was only like 4 pages, so it didn't really matter too much. So yeah, beyond that, I really enjoyed this. I found it very informative. I will be definitely checking it when I need different archery tips and stuff like that. So yeah, I highly recommend this to any other author out there who is looking for maybe like archery tips and stuff like that and wants to make sure you get it right in your books. I highly recommend this book. I gave it 5 stars, and honestly, I don't even remember how I found this book. I just want to throw that out there because I think it's so funny. I think it came, I don't know, I think I randomly found it on an Amazon thing. Like, it was like a suggested, suggested by. I don't even know how I found this book, or my mom found it. So one of us found it first on Amazon, and I have no idea. But yeah, it is very informative, and I think a lot more authors need to know that it exists, because yeah, it would definitely help if you write a lot of archery, or you want to write about an archer and get things right in your books. So yeah, very, very good resource. Highly recommend. And the last book I have to talk about today is a book I literally just finished today, and that is Transitions by Jane Ayers, I believe is how you say the author's name. This is an old favorite of mine from when I was younger. It's basically it's one of those contemporary horse stories. Basically we follow this girl, Annie. She is looking for a horse to buy, and she comes, so she answers an ad in a newspaper, I think it is, or a magazine, to try out this girl's, Elizabeth's horse, Rocket, and yeah, and things go from there because Elizabeth has cancer, and she's trying to have Rocket a good home, but Rocket's not really a great fit for Annie, and just things ensue from there. It's a very short book, so there's not much I can say about it, but my nostalgia rating for this book is 5 stars because I did really enjoy it when I first read it. My actual rating now is 3.5 stars, mainly because it's a very simple story. It's a very short story. The story itself is told very well, and it's fine. I did have a problem with Elizabeth's attitude in the very beginning, actually even kind of throughout, but definitely at the very beginning. She's kind of extremely rude and very inconsiderate to Annie's fears about, like, jumping and stuff. I didn't like that because it was almost portrayed as, you know, it's fine that she's doing it because she has cancer, so I don't know. It wasn't stated outright that way, but it was almost portrayed that way, and I don't know, I just found that kind of off-putting. I also just found her attitude really annoying, so at times, also, there is one part in this book where, yeah, something happens, and literally it has no bearing on the rest of the plot. Literally, it just happens. It's resolved in, like, a chapter, and then it's never mentioned again. It never has anything to do with the plot. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, why is this in here? Because it literally has no bearing on the rest of the story. It's kind of just like it was thrown in there to have some extra drama for Annie to deal with, and that was it. It was really weird. So I didn't enjoy that. The ending still made me tear up. So yeah. And it's an overall decent story. But yeah, I don't know, I guess I'm just not that into it anymore. It's decent enough, but also it doesn't hold up, if you know what I mean. At least to me, it doesn't really hold up to these standards I hold books nowadays, which some of these older books, some of these books don't when I reread them. Some of them do, so that's why I just keep rereading them, because also I'm trying to, like, you know, pare down on books that I think I've explained this in several videos before. I try to keep books that I really, really love. And buy books that I really, really love, so if they don't match up to that, I generally get rid of them. And yeah, I will be unhauling this book. And also, if you are interested in it, don't be put off by the creepy cover. It's not a horror book or a haunting or anything like that. It almost makes it look like it's a ghost story. It's not. It's a contemporary about a girl who has cancer and a girl who's buying her horse. It's really way tame compared to this cover. I was always confused why they chose this cover because it's like, it makes it look really creepy. It's not though, so yeah. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. So yeah, that is my most recent reads. Pretty much I read all these mostly in April. Only 2 of the books I started and finished in May, and that would be Transitions and The King is Queen. Yeah, I've finished those 2 in May. So yeah, yeah, let me know down below in the comments what you guys have been reading recently, or if you've read any of these, have any thoughts on them, want to know anything else about them. I'd love to hear from you guys. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!